If you learn these 3 core types of rock fills, you can then go and learn a bunch of other types of fills out there and even create your own. Hey, welcome to the Non-Glamorous Drummer. I believe that no matter who you are, you can conquer the drums when you're armed with the right know-how, and I believe today's lesson is going to help you do just that. Be sure to subscribe if you're new, but also check out my totally free e-guide, 5 Steps to Learning Any Song in Under an Hour. It's a really impactful method that really revolutionized the way I prepared for gigs years ago. This is a really cool proven method that'll save you a whole bunch of time and develop your ear and develop your ability to play fills well. Check it out. When you learn a core fundamental skill, you automatically get better at a whole bunch of other things. And this principle very directly applies to our lesson today because I'm teaching you a framework, 3 frameworks, from which you can create a whole bunch of other types of fills. And so when you learn these 3 core types, you get much better at handling whatever fills come your way. Now there's also a big secret to creating your own original fills that fit the song musically. The best part is it's not complicated and you can start employing this tactic in your playing today. I'll share it with you at the end of the video. The only reason I call it a secret is because it's not something very talked about. It's not something a lot of people are aware of, but it's really cool, so I'm excited to share it with you. But in the core of today's lesson, we're talking about these 3 main types of rock fills. The first one is the linear kick snare fill, that's what I like to call it. The second one is the singles with space fill. And the third one is the groove/band hits fill, which is kind of a unique one. So let's dig into these. So the linear kick snare fill, the reason I say it's linear is because it's often a back and forth between snare and kick, and it could also be toms and kick. So it might be a snare kick, kick, snare kick, kick, snare kick, boom. It could be something that simple, but either way it's a back and forth, whether it's a grouping of 3, snare kick, kick, or it's just snare kick, tom kick, tom kick. That kind of pattern is so useful and so practical to play in a lot of rock settings. Here's some examples of this. Now here's how you can improve at this. Number 1, you've got to have a steady right foot, because the funny thing about patterns like this, a lot of times they're actually easier to play fast. You can get to where a lot of times a lot of drummers have an easier time playing that fast, but then when they slow it down, it gets clumsy. And so practice being very intentional about playing it slowly, because this type of fill is just as useful and just as common in songs slowly as it is quickly. Depending on what kind of music you listen to, you might even hear this type of fill slowly played more often. So your right foot has to be very stable and very secure in its time. So sit there and practice 1/8 notes with your right foot. Just practice playing steadily over and over again, and then practice going snare, kick, kick, snare, kick, kick, keeping things smooth and in time. Practice the pattern very slowly, and then speed will come. If you're working on building speed, it's going to happen. But if you come from the standpoint of already being able to play it fast, back off, relax, focus on playing it slowly, and you're going to build your skills so much with this. Number 2, the singles with space fill. So this is simple, and it's a very simple concept, but a great way to create unique fills. And it just starts with singles, a basic single stroke roll around the kit. But if you add some space to that, in other words, you take out a note or 2, or maybe you throw in some accents, things can get unique very quickly. So the funny thing about these types of fills is that they're deceivingly simple to play, but they're very easy to rush. Very easy to take out notes and rush the space or rush an accent. And so it takes a lot of diligence and discipline to really nail these, play them solidly, especially when they're happening more slowly. So tips for improving at this: be very solid with just your alternating 16ths. So solid that you can play them with a metronome in your sleep pretty much. And then from there you can practice taking out certain notes, adding in accents. I'd recommend start off by taking out a beat or so. Like when I say that, I mean take out beat 1 or take out beat 3. But you've got to make sure that that space, that rest is executed exactly in time so that everything finishes in time. And so practice doing that. What's also really fun to do is play your alternating 16ths on the snare, but then reach over and hit a tom every so often. Easy to do with your right hand, which is just beats and ands, but reach over and hit a rack tom, with your left hand on an E or an or reach over and hit the floor tom. Or if you got a crazy setup with a tom on your left, there you go. But what this does is it helps your ear get used to hearing random different sounds and rhythms and melodies showing up in your playing while your hands are just doing the same thing. It's one of those weird things where if you haven't done it before, when you're used to just playing autopilot 16ths, as soon as your ear hears something else while you're doing that, it can throw you off very easily. And so be intentional about practicing that and just getting used to that and realizing, okay, I can make all sorts of sounds and melodies happen here while doing the same alternating pattern. Super versatile. Practice the singles with space. This last one, this is really cool. I call it the groove band hits fill because it's kind of a fill that might happen in the midst of a groove, or maybe the backbeat continues and maybe the kick drum pattern matches a band hit. Like maybe there are hits on certain parts of the beat, and so what you're playing reflects that. Rather than me try to over explain it, let me just show you what I'm talking about. So of course, to improve at this, you've got to have a tight relationship between your right hand and your right foot, because we're often hitting crashes with the right hand while the kick is playing. So a cool, fun exercise for getting going with this, if you haven't done this before, play paradiddles between the kick and the snare, and then have your right hand match up with the right foot with those paradiddles. We drummers spend a lot of time practicing getting our right foot to offset our right hand, so that our right hand just keeps time while our right foot does whatever randomness. But it's not like we spend a lot of time just hitting things, right hand and right foot together, and so that can be surprisingly challenging. And so practice the paradiddles very slowly, don't just blow through them. Practice them very slowly and really make sure your right hand is landing with your foot. And also, even from a simpler standpoint, practice playing grooves you already know, but instead of keeping eighth note time, just hit a crash or hit a tom or something with your kick, just to get used to that and make sure they're happening together and happening tightly. All right, I mentioned earlier I was going to share with you this big secret tip for being able to play original fills that fit the song, and this was huge for me personally, and I hope it's going to be huge for you too. You must use your ear to create great fills. Strive to create unique rhythms. Like, think of a cool rhythm in your head. Think of something interesting, and then make sure that your hands and your feet play that, rather than just playing something from your hands and feet. So brain needs to be in control, not limbs. So musical mind is in control here. Think of a rhythm and then perform that. Now, to get a little more specific here, the best fills stem from melody. So that could be melody from the vocalist, from the vocal part. It could be from a guitar part or a riff or something the bass player plays. That melody could come from any other part in the song. But a lot of times the best fills, the coolest fills, the most musical fills that just fit so well, they stem from the melody. They're either reinforcing a melody or they're offsetting it. In order to know what to play and when to play it, you have to be listening. Pay attention to the melody and how the song is progressing. Pay attention to the story of the song, the dynamics, so that you can know, okay, going into this chorus, I need to play this to make it feel big, or going into this drop out here, I need to play this so we can drop out. So from a fundamental standpoint, you've got to know the flow of the song, and that way you know what kind of fill to place where. But on a micro level, pay attention to that melody. Think through what's happening right now. What can I play that doesn't step on that doesn't distract from that, but rather reinforces that melody and brings it to the top. Great drummers play parts that reinforce what needs to be heard in a song, in a mix. How do you build these skills? Well, simply put, play with people. Play with musicians, play with bands, play in a cover band, jam with friends. Do as much playing as you can, especially if you can play original material. That's a great experience with doing this. But at a minimum, listen a lot to music. Sit there and really listen to music. Listen through headphones and listen to all the parts going on and ask yourself why. Why does that drum part fit so well? Why does that sound so good? Why does that make sense? Because that's going to illuminate a lot of that for you. If that's something you haven't done, sit down and do that, because that sitting down and listening to music might be more productive for your drumming growth than practicing anything else we've talked about today, depending on where you're at in your playing. 3 great fills that come to mind that are super melody based. There's one of my favorites from a song called Ain't Supposed to Rain by a band called Welshly Arms. The drum fill is basically the riff. It's like the catchy little riff of the song because it matches up with the guitar riff. It matches it, and so there's a guitar riff that happens along with this drum riff. Such a cool part, very melodic and unique. Last Christmas by Wham, there's a fill that happens throughout the song that particularly lines up with a melody and reinforces it in the second verse. Pretty cool, check that out. And also there's a fill in The Power of Love by Huey Lewis in the News that launches into the guitar solo at the end of the bridge. And though it doesn't directly match a melody or a riff in the song, it's a very melodic style fill. It's not just a flurry of notes, it has some space. And the goal of this fill is to go from one section of the song into the next, to set up a new section. Very cool, great example of a unique melodic fill. You can hear me demonstrate all three of these in a recent video I did called 12 Musical Fills Every Drummer Should Be Able to Play, where we go through all sorts of cool fills that are very musical and melodic, and I break them down for you. You can also download the notation, so be sure to check out that video. It's in the description. Thanks so much for watching. If this video helped you out and this lesson provided you with a lot of value, check out my free e-guide, 5 Steps to Learning Any Song in Under an Hour, where we break down a lot more of these listening skills, teaching you how to listen to a song, how to pick out parts, and that's going to help you so much with playing the right fills, playing the right grooves. I teach you how to write a cool cheat sheet chart quickly and how to eventually memorize the song as a result. And so if you want to go a step further with this and be able to learn songs much more quickly and actually hear things you've never heard before on a recording and just open your ears up to new things, new possibilities, check it out. It's helped out a whole bunch of drummers and it's going to help you out too. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe before you go and be sure to check out some of my other video lessons in the description also. Thanks so much, guys. I will see you on the next video.